Welcome to my next S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 episode review video. Before I talk about that, though, pretty important. If you haven't watched through Season 1, Episode 6 of The S.H.I.E.L.D., then it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already watched The S.H.I.E.L.D. all the way through one time. I think it's a really solid show. A show that's even a little bit ahead of its time. So join me on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show in the comments section. With that said, this will be The S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, Episode 6. The title of this episode is called Cherrypoppers. And this will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. We start with Dutch, who arrives on the scene of a murder. A underage prostitute stabbed and left face down. Well aware that the murder is part of a string that he's been investigating, Dutch asks Aceveda for 48 hours and the resources to hunt for the killer, while sending Julian to question a witness about a car seen leaving the scene, a green one with a broken rear taillight. Dutch and Claudette prep the department on the hunt for the killer, having been given 24 hours, ordering them to round up local pimps and search gas stations and car washes for the car. Vic Mackey refuses to take orders from Dutch and leaves with a strike team to find the killer himself. Dutch warns him to report everything he finds directly to him as Vic leaves. Julian asks Aceveda what is being done about the strike team stealing cocaine, but Aceveda, knowing they cannot prove it, advises him to let it go. Vic visits Connie, who recognizes the dead girl and points him toward a friend of hers. The prostitute leads Vic to Sam, a man who pimped Sam out, and he points the team to a sex club that Sally had previously worked at. He warns her to have someone watching her back following the recent murders. Dutch gets the girl's name, Sally Struthers, from a group of prostitutes in lockup, and he and Claudette start to create a timeline of the events. FBI agent Jim Wright is called by Dutch, who arrives to help them with the case. Dutch interviews a gas station attendant who claims to have seen the car and the owner that was behaving oddly, not going back for his change after paying for gas. At the same time, Claudette interviews a dealer who sold to Sally, expecting reward money for telling the police, but is instead arrested for dealing and statutory rape. Aceveda is informed that the woman's toilet in the precinct are no longer working, meaning they no longer have any working bathrooms in the building, and he is forced to get a plumber. Vic intercepts a regular customer of the invite-only sex club and forces him to take him inside as a guest, meeting the owner, Mrs. Park. She invites him to watch Sun Lee, an underage girl, have sex with an adult on a childlike set with the rest of the regulars. Vic watches, immediately leaving the club, warning the man who got him in to never return, and calls for a warrant. The police raid the club, where Vic finds a closet of tapes in Mrs. Park's office labeled as Cherrypoppers films. Ronnie finds Sun Lee, and Vic tells him to take her back to the clubhouse. Danny learns that Julian is trying to report something to Eternal Affairs and asks who it is about, but he angrily brushes her off as Aceveda watches. Aceveda pulls him aside and again warns him to stop, but Julian insists that he cannot live with himself as a Christian if he lets Vic go, knowing the department will turn against him, but also knowing he has to do the right thing. The toilets explode, flooding the precinct's floor. Dutch and Wright discuss the latter's profile of the killers, pinning him as a late 20s, early 30s male who feels unappreciated and leaves his victims face down for the thrill of domination, likely with a live woman. And then we have Tom Ross, who's brought into the precinct after claiming to have seen Sally in a green car, and after assuring him being anonymous, gives Dutch a license plate number he wrote down. As Dutch gives it to an officer to track down, Vic returns with Park in custody, explaining to Dutch that cherry popping refers to fetish videos where underage girls lose their virginity on camera, and that he plans to track down the filmmaker. Dutch and Vic argue over the latter's apparent disinterest in the case before Vic leaves after ordering Lem to watch the tapes for anything of interest. He plays blackjack with Sun Lee while questioning her, learning that she is a Korean immigrant brought over by Park. Vic is warned by administrative assistant Lita Valverde that Aceveda had her call IAD, and he asked Danny to go get Julian in line. She tries, but Julian tells her what he saw and warns her to leave it, or she could take blame in the theft of the drugs. And then we have the owner of the car is identified as Steve Hanratty, is brought in for questioning as he tries to manipulate Steve into a confession by using Wright's profile. Vic interrupts and tells Dutch they found Sally on a Cherrypoppers tape. They stick Park in a interrogation room and play Sally's tape. Vic warning her that if he has to turn it off before she confesses to what she knows, there are no rules in this room. Both Dutch and Park find themselves unable to watch it for long, the latter explaining that she got Sally from a man named Kurt Schmidt. A deeply unsettled Dutch asks Vic to find Kurt, which he assures he will. Sally's boyfriend, Eric, unaware of her line of work, tells them she left their date at 10 o'clock. Danny approaches Julian and asks him to tell her more about what he saw. Vic has suddenly identified Kurt through photos, and Vic arrests him. Dutch, Claudette, and Wright pinpoint where Sally was picked up based on all their collected evidence, and Dutch tries to get Steve to confess to being on that street at the time of her pickup by showing him the photos of other dead prostitutes. He mentions that they have a witness, and Steve realizes that Ross, a friend of his, is playing a prank on him. Dutch arrests Ross for obstruction of justice, but just as Vic returns with Kurt, who reminds Dutch to stay focused just as he gets a message on his pager from Connie. He finds her in a motel room with a dead client who she shot in the chest after she suspected he was trying to hurt her. She begs Vic to help her, who coaches her on a story about the man trying to rape her at gunpoint, and realizes he has to hit her for the story to seem realistic. Initially reluctant, he starts to hit her in the face. So Vic Mackey, he's a bad guy, but he has a conscience, but he's also very good at compartmentalizing things, like doing bad things and just being like, well, I can push this somewhere else in my head. Aceveda pulls Dutch's support early. A riot having broken out in a nearby house school that needs the police force. Angered that Aceveda put equal manpower into fixing the pipes as he did to stop a serial killer, Dutch states that she deserves better, and Aceveda sighs, I know. He responds with bluntness when Danny asks him to help her study for the sergeant's exam, so he's mad at Danny. He's still mad that Vic was messing around with Danny, and she doesn't know that yet. And then Vic promises her while in lockup that she did okay, and she insists that she is going to change her life. This is Connie. She replays her cover story to the police. And then Vic sends a protesting Sun Lee away to be deported back to Korea in hopes of turning her life around, and Dutch, mistaking her for Sally, stops her before realizing his mistake. Vic and Wright assure a despondent Dutch that he did good work. And then Danny asks Vic if he stole the drugs, promising not to tell anyone because of all she owes him, but still demanding to know the truth. Vic insists that Julian is lying, and Danny asks Vic to leave her alone so she can mull over what she knows. Dutch visits Danny at her house and apologizes for his early behavior, admitting the failure of the case is weighing him down, but acknowledging that that does not excuse him. Danny invites him in for food as prostitutes try to attract customers on a corner. A green car with a broken taillight passes by, and that's what ends this episode of The Shield. So pretty good episode. We learn more about Dutch, obviously, in this episode. So I'm going to give this one an 8.4 out of 10. And the character of the episode, I mean, Vic Mackey is theoretically the character of every episode. But for this one, in addition to him, I'm going to say Dutch, Howland Wagenbach, whatever you want to call him, Dutch boy. He did a good job in this one. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of The Shield and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash that like button. Otherwise, I'll have to send the strike team after you. Share this video with a friend. Put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are regarding this episode of The Shield. What would you rate this episode, and who would you choose as a character or characters of the episode? And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to my channel. Help me get over 100K subscribers. Yes, I know. That's a pretty lofty goal, but I got to start somewhere. Join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDevTV.